All right, dimensioning. Let me pull these up. Now, obviously, you need to do the college or the solid professor stuff. Um, you need to watch this video before you continue, because this will have before you draw, because this will have all your. This is how you set up all your dimensioning styles, and that's important. If you're not set up, that's going to be wrong. So let's look at the first one here. Also, we have a chapter in here that I highly recommend you reading. Okay, and this covers all your dimensioning rules and things that we will follow. Standards, appropriate way to do it, the wrong way to do it. Okay, at the end of the chapter, there's even a list of rules here that looks pretty extensive. It is pretty extensive. I've seen smaller lists of rules, but they're pretty. These are pretty comprehensive. So, so let's take a look at this right here. And the first thing I'm going to do, what I like to do, the first thing is we put in our center marks. So, I'm going to change my layer, annotate, start popping in these center marks. Okay. All right, now, a couple things before I get into this is we want to keep the dimensions between the views as much as possible, meaning linear dimensions, like the dimensions with the extension line. Notes and leaders and stuff can go outside the view. If you start putting your notes and stuff inside the view, then you can put a dimension outside the view if necessary, if it helps for clarity, but generally we want to keep things between the views. That way you can associate the dimensions to each other, to the object better. We also do not we dimension to profiles. We don't dimension to hidden lines. We'll hit all these rules as I go along. But first we want to kind of like start with the features, the smaller features first. So like I would go from here to there. And then what I like to do is set my snap at an 1/8 inch, which that is not. So let me go do that now. 0.125. The reason why I'm doing this is that when you place dimensions, the first tier of a dimension, okay, let me pull one up. Something up here. Look right here. All right, so we have location features, which are dimensioning, and then the overall. So the first tier of dimensions is generally 3 times the text height away from the object. After that, the second tier will be 2 times the text height. And it doesn't look like it here, but that's that's the general rule. There we go. So here we have, and they're giving us in millimeters, but about 3 times the text height and then 2 times the text height for each tier after the first tier. Okay. There's always there should be a gap between the extension line and the object line. in this case, you would not have a gap because it's going to a center line. All right, the center line just extends and turns into an extension line. And some basic things here about, let's see. Okay, some basic rules to look at. It's okay to cross the extension lines, but never cross dimension lines. Okay, so place the smaller dimension first, like they did here, and then the larger dimension will go second. Have your dimensions grouped together, none of this stuff. Okay, and you don't want to put gaps when you go over a visible line to get to a profile of what you're dimensioning. So it would come straight through like so. So let's jump into this here. So I've got my snap set to 0.125, and if I hit the F9 key, it toggles it on and off. So now I got it off, now I got it on. You see how jerky that moves? Okay, so I'll toggle it off to grab where I want to dimension. And then I'm going to toggle it on so I can look at it and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, for that first tier of dimensions. All right. Let me double check real quick though. Okay, our units are 2 decimal points, so that's good. I don't have to change that. Now, let's look where they dimension this here. A lot of times you can just kind of look at how it's dimensioned in the original drawing and just use that as a guideline. We're not going to dimension, okay, see how you got the 0.88 and then the 1. Okay, we're not going to put a 1-inch dimension here because we want to dimension the profiles. So this down here is going to be the same as this, right? That represents that line, that corner. So this right here, it shows the profile of the object. So we can see here what's going on a lot clearer than up here. So we're going to dimension here to here, and then I'll put a dimension from center to center. Let me get my bifocals back. I broke my old glasses. I have bifocals, and now I got to take my glasses off and put my nose right up to the screen, right there. Line that up right there. Go ahead and dimension from this corner to here. Oh, that's a line. I did that in class the other day too. That's funny. Okay, 1, 2, 3. That's about right. That may be a little bit more than that, but since it's a horizontal dimension like that, that's okay. As long as you're consistent. Okay, so now I'm going to come down. I'm not doing my overalls yet. I'm going to come down. I'm going to go ahead and do this dimension here to here. 1, 2, 3. Now, you notice I have my gaps. Those are set my dimension styles. Okay. When you pick, be careful of what you pick, because if I were to pick this dimension like this, if I were to put it in and picked that and that, I won't get a gap. Okay, and that would be wrong. So you got to be careful about what you're picking. Okay, 1, 2, 3. That's good. Over here again, this shape right here is the same here, but we don't put the dimension here. We put it over here because we can see the visible profile. All right. So we'll come in here with this one. And when you got a dimension that gets forced out like that, when you place the dimension, it depends on which point you pick first. The second point is going to be the side that the dimension goes on. So if I pick this first and then this, it's going to be on the bottom. If I pick this first and then this, it's going to be on the top. Right? But I'm going to try to squeeze that in there. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to see if I can jostle that in there by grabbing it. Put it right there. I got it. Okay. Now, so now I'm going to do this one. I don't dimension this. Do not dimension redundant things. And what I mean by that is, okay, I have a dimension here for this right now. 1, 2, 3. I do not put a dimension here. I already have it here. Okay, so it's not needed anywhere else. You don't want to over dimension. Okay, so for this situation right here, I'm going to just, instead of dimensioning from here to here and then here to here, I'm going to do what's kind of a stack dimension. I'll show you an example of that. When you have something that's symmetrical like that, if it's not symmetrical, you got to do it the other way. But if you got something that's symmetrical like that, okay, this is be an easier way to dimension it, okay? Because then you can use simple mathematics to figure out, whatever else you want. But when you do this, you don't stack them up like this. You want to kind of jog them around, okay, stagger them so they don't get all, confusing. It's easier to read that way. Like, for example, in the very beginning of this chapter, there's one that's on a side dimension. Let's see here. Okay. Like right here. Okay. If these dimensions were all lined up, they would be on top of each other and it would be impossible to read. Okay. So we could go ahead and place a dimension here. And then we can do an overall. I'm going to put the overall up here too, just to illustrate the example. I'm going to put it here. And then I'm going to make sure that these are offset. Just going to move this over. And in this situation, if you're a little bit too close, it's not a total sin to go a little bit more than the space that's given. So I'm going to turn my snap off and kind of free this in right there. And that's good. All right, so if you need to know the distance from here to here, you just 1 minus 2 is 1, and divide by 2 is 0.5. So you got that. We still need more overalls. We need an overall for the height. I'm going to put it over here as well. One, 2, and I'm going to scooch that up. Do that. Scooch this up a little bit. Okay. And we need an overall for the length, which I'm going to put on this view because I need to put the dimensions for the center marks up. So let me move this. I'll just keep that where it's at for right now. Let's get an overall in here and see how it looks. Might have to do some moving. Come on. And that's not too bad, actually. Okay, we don't want dimensions going across both views. There's going to be a gap between the two views. That's important. I'm going to move everything down just a tad, or the bottom views. Show my orthos on. And then for our notes, for dimensions, okay, I'm going to come up here and let's see, annotate. Under here, we can pick which kind of dimension we want, linear, aligned, angular. We're doing a diameter, so I'll put a diameter dimension here. and it's, if we look at the way it's dimensioned anyway, 0.5 times 2. So I'm going to double click on the dimension. See how it highlights there? And use your arrow key, you move your cursor around. Then I can just add stuff. X2. Okay, because we've got 2 holes here with a diameter 5. Let's see. Is there anything else that could come in here? We got this. Got the overalls. We got the height. That. I think we've got everything here. Everything that's necessary. Okay. All right. Then, like, if you were to put in, if there were notes, for example, you would put notes here. So let's say I had to put some notes in there, to the text and all caps, notes, abbreviate as much as possible. That's the wrong text font. I want my 1/8 inch text. There we go. Not notes, notes. And I'm just gonna make up some random notes here. Break all sharp corners. One required. I don't know. Cast steel, whatever. Okay, I just made up some notes there. And down here, so I brought this in as a block. I'm going to have to go ahead and explode this. Explode. So now I can go ahead and edit that. This doesn't have a name. I'll just call it Doom Drawing 1. And that's me, full scale. What are we looking at here? 1113. 11/13. And that's good. Save that. And I can plot it. Plot. AutoCAD PDF. We're going to go to Nancy Expand A. Limits. Center of the plot. Scale is 1:1. And monochrome.ctb. Preview it. Everything looks good. Do the last look-see over. See if you missed anything, which, that's why I always have checkers, and a lot of times I miss stupid stuff all the time. Plot it up. Let's see, work. Last documents, 1201, 1221. Okay.